quiet time. Slow mo, give me a miniature timeline. The image is looking different when I skydive, and I stand still noticing the time fly. I know where I stand, but I never know my place. Relatives got my back, so I got relative time and space. Calm down, shout out, sanity. No, we be holding it down like gravity. So wavy, I'm repeating the galaxy. And you know that I did it with the family. I got gold, but they criticize mastery. Take a shot for me, take a blast for me. They don't believe in what I don't feel. Sounds like gas to me, but no acting me. I just say it how I see it from my side. Watch and learn as they burn bridges, then they turn a blind eye. Look both ways before you cross me, Mr. Wise Guy. Stuck in all you shoulda, woulda, coulda stuff in hindsight. Been told that anytime it's no time. I see the way it goes with closed eyes. I flip the coin, it lands on both sides. Weigh up my choices and I nose dive. Been told that anytime it's no time. I see the way it goes with closed eyes. I flip the coin, it lands on both sides. Weigh up my choices and I. Everything is a chance of anything. So the plans of developing, it's in the hands of endeavoring. Sounds easy. When I think and I expand on how elements are embedded in your essence, pure blessing. Threaded in every string and theory. Wavy with a vibration. Vex about any violation. X amount for the dimension. Energies forever the correlation. The chance that we all prefer going all in and see it all returned. And if it's all linked and going all out, there's no faulty words in this multiverse because black is the tone. Notice the melody carries melanin in every note. Tackling woes, navigating through the desperate measures as the ebony flows. Back in my soul, make a lesson from the message left in every sentence it wrote. I'll dive into the darkest mind, going deeper while the inner enemy flow. Whoa, yeah. Any
Hello.
How are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
Excited to begin this lovely 9-week journey, motherfucker.
Yes,
To be
man.
specific,
It's been a long time coming.
I feel so ready for it, and it is on the speed of this. I'm gonna sit down and I wanted to wait until after we have this session, and I know I'm gonna be buzzing, and I'm gonna record my exploding eyeball testimony.
Oh my God. Yeah.
While I'm riding
Hell,
that fucking wave, bro.
hell yeah.
Yeah, it's gonna be great. Raina's gonna be here, right?
I was about to say I'm gonna just send a message in the Telegram like,
Hey, peoples.
Yo, Raina. Oh, there she is.
I think I got it.
Hi.
Oh no, my camera's not working.
Oh no.
Oh wait a minute. Hold on, it's doing something. Oh, there we go. Okay.
Oh, hi.
Hi.
Hey,
Um,
lady.
you
How's it
missed
going?
the.
Sorry.
Oh no, you're
Didn't
fine. You just
food
missed. We
life
were
and
like,
everything today.
we were playing or we were listening to "Love in This Club" by Usher. I'm just kidding. We weren't. We weren't doing that. That's not what happened.
I would say that did come up on my Spotify today during a drive.
Really, it's been stuck in my head all day. I was like,
Yeah,
why is this in my head?
it was weird. It was weird. I was like, oh, that's an interesting, I don't know, poll.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. Q, are all things copacetic with this random Arabic text message?
Oh,
Oh, okay. I was like, well, I mean,
no,
we
it's
could learn
whatever. I
some.
totally reported it as spam, whatever.
Okay, cool, cool. So this is the group today. Something about this seems really familiar. I can't really like put my finger on it, but I almost feel like
I don't know.
Yeah,
Maybe
I
it's
don't know either.
I don't know.
Mhm. Yeah. There's a theme. There's
Hmm.
a theme emerging.
Yeah,
Uh,
light.
yes. We do have one more person, Trish, who will be joining us for the rest of the time, but she won't be here today, which I'm going to go ahead and say, while I was open to there being however many amount of people wanted to come to this, I was really kind of hoping for, and it was a part of the reason behind the price point, that it wasn't a very large group.
Right.
Yeah. Just given the nature of this course, which really shouldn't even be called a course. But before I start talking, which, because if you're here, you must just love to listen to me talk, because that I got a lot of that for
Look,
you.
that's what I do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I'm doing. But before I get into that, how are you guys doing today? How's the day been like for you?
Do you want to start, Q? I can start.
You start, Rena.
Um, good. It's been feeling like most of my days, which I like. I've just been waking up really early. Today was a later day though. Going to work out, going from a hot girl walk at some point,
Yes.
taking a very long nap.
Yeah.
I keep saying I shouldn't take long naps. And then today I was just like, I think I'm just giving in to this long nap thing. Cause I was like, I don't have time for this. And then I was like, no, you take them because you do have time for them. So,
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
so
Yes, you do.
today, that's what I told myself. I said, no, clearly you have time for them because you're doing it. So I'm just gonna keep doing it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Asking that reward.
And I'm like, that's it. So that's pretty much in it.
Nice. Nice, nice, nice.
I've been super hyped about this. And I can feel how I've been priming the pump before, because as I shared with you earlier, Nayoka, I started listening to a series of videos about people having really powerful conversations. That's the general theme of the shop. And there are so many things in those conversations that touch on what we're approaching here. I can feel it already, even though I'm not really sure what journey you're about to take us on. I can tell I'm pre-gaming. It's like pre-gaming, you know what I mean?
Yes.
So, before you go to, I could feel it. It's been happening since yesterday. So I'm in this very peak sensitive place right now. And in particular, with fixed attention on being in love with the process. Being in love with the process, that all that juicy shit in between.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm fucking ready. Let's go.
All right. Yes.
Yes.
Let's do it. All right. So right out the gate, I'm gonna go ahead and tell you. This is the most boring class. I'm sorry. Oh, it is. But listen, it has to be this way because one, I've got to tell you about the thing. And that's like, it's kind of like just staring at a present instead of opening it. But beyond that, things are going to kind of escalate as we go on, particularly when we get to week 4. And so I designed this so that basically it builds not just in the content, the material, but also in the intensity of it. So today, there's the lecture, which is pretty cut and dry. It's on Anthroposophy and Rudolf Steiner, because throughout the entire course, a lot of the lecture material will be kind of a hybrid between my trying to do his teachings justice and blended with my own personal experience and wisdom accrued over the years, right? So I have to do my due diligence, and hopefully by the end of this course, kind of like recruit you into like being an anthroposophist, hopefully. Hopefully. And so that's the one half. The other half, which is why it's kind of a bummer that Trish isn't going to be here, because if there was one class in particular that it would be most helpful to have everyone here, is this one. Because in lieu of what would usually take the place of an exercise and activities, a lot of times it'll be a very specific guided meditation that we're going to be repeating class after class. We're gonna, it's an exercise of sorts, but we're going to be talking more. We're going to be having more conversation. And so without further ado, let me tell you why it is so, okay? What do you call these? Presentation. Not every class will have one of these, because sometimes I think that they can add to it, and other times I think that they take away from it. But for this one, we will have one. As soon as I figure out how to All right. I don't necessarily know how to make it go to the next. There we go. All right. Here we are. So I want to talk to you as an opener to what this is about, the process of combining. Okay. So combining the mind with the heart, knowledge with action, which is kind of to the point of what this is. Masculine with the feminine, physical with the spiritual. We're going to be talking in a lot of different contexts and through different lenses throughout this course about what multidimensionality even means in an objective sense, but also watching what it means to us personally, myself included, transform over the duration of our time that we spent together. Okay. But on the most basic level, what I have over time, you can look at it, you could look at it very, you could very well look at it as over my entire life, or you could put a spotlight over the last 3 months, of which I have devoted every single night of my life, with the exception of a few days, to what you get to participate in. I've whittled it down to one thing, and that is the ability to combine these things. So if you are here, you are seeking this balance. Multidimensionality is kind of a vague and nebulous word. But if you're here, the thing that I am positing that attracted you to this course is this balance between the things that I just mentioned in the previous slide, but a balance that doesn't just leave space for both of them, a balance where both of these things are happening simultaneously and to ever more expanded degrees that are alongside that expansion, comfortable and enriching and enlivening to hold at the same time. So before we get into Dear Rudolph here, this process of combining, which I'm calling How to Live, which I'm implicating you in, is it's essentially an alchemical process to the degree that you will allow it to be. So here's what you can anticipate in a logistical sense over the next 9 weeks, because I feel like it's very important to talk about these things so that you can feel more grounded in what is very much, as you will see at certain times through this, I will inevitably flounder because it's a very experimental thing, and I want to be very upfront about that. There is risk involved in a lot of these activities and exercises that I have planned for you in the future. There's risk involved in some of the material that I'm going to present to you because, in short, some of it is quite advanced, but I am betting on your being here in terms of your ability and your capacity to play with it with me. So, as you already know from the way that I described and marketed this course, it's part workshop and part lecture series. So it's a combination essentially of knowledge and application. So the first 3 weeks, as I mentioned, are designed to be less intensive than the weeks after. Everything really shifts pretty dramatically at week 4. So if I could offer just a wee dram of advice here, I would say that when you look at the date of our class on week 4, consider when you're looking at your calendar, consider leaving a little bit more room open than usual that week following the first class of that Sunday, so that you can acclimate to the intensity increase. Every time we meet, except with the exception of this particular class, because it's just as much about me getting to know you in a certain context as it is about me presenting things to you. But there will essentially be 4 components in how we'll spend our 2 hours, which is the lecture portion, then there's going to be a 5-minute break, and then the activity portion, which will more often than not include a guided meditation. I hate guided meditations. I know no other way to describe this to you. I promise it's not lame. And then the discussion Q&A portion, which has never been more important or more paramount to you getting your money's worth than this particular course. And I'll explain to you why. The way that I've designed this is that you could theoretically take it again the next time I host it, and it would be, for the most part, a very different experience, because I've deliberately left core parts of it unfilled, to be filled, excuse me, by the essences and the needs and the dreams of the people who participate in it. So for example, in week 4 is when I introduce, sorry, I really have something in my throat. Is this recorded? I hope so. Just kidding. In week 4, one of the reasons why it amps up, I told you this was boring, is I'm going to introduce aura, which is my new conceptual framework, which means ordinary radical acts. Okay. Now, I can't tell you too much about it until week 4, but what I can tell you is that it is still being written, and the parts that are still being written are dependent upon your participation. Okay. So this is essentially very much tailor-made to the people who participate in it. So another thing that you can kind of prepare for a little bit in week 4 is that, has everybody here seen a reality TV show in which there were confessionals? You know, so each member, there's a point where they're like talking to the camera about all the other members in the house and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Well, I'm rebranding that as the telling. And there is a, oh my God. I might have to call Emery in to like do this for a couple minutes. I'm just kidding. It's my 1-year-old. So there is a place where aura, ordinary radical acts, and the telling meet. Okay. And this also, in case you haven't gotten the message yet, greatly depends on your participation. In short, you will get what you put into this experience. You really will. There are things that I will tell you. There are things that I will quite literally show you. And then for this to work, there are things that you must experience for yourself. I am not going to, follow after you or hound you or like, did you do, whatever. It is quite literally up to you how much you really want to commit to all the things that I put before you. And that's that. So before any of this can occur, we have to lay a foundation, which, again, this looks familiar. We've already kind of been working on this, considering we already spent a month together, but a foundation of safety, essentially, on which that we can build a bond, even if it's a short time together. And so with that being said, please take full advantage of not only the discussion and Q&A portions of each class. I am literally, you could almost think of this as like an extended mentorship as well. You will have my 100% undivided full attention and devotion to whatever in the world you want to put towards me. You have me for 9 weeks, not only on every Sunday, but in that Telegram chat. Use that thing. It's like having me in your pocket. Whatever that, comes up, just basically what I'm saying is make the most of it, get your money's worth out of it. All right, so there's a little bit about what to expect. I started studying metaphysics and psychic ability and esoterica and all of these things, as you already know, very young, talking 7, 8 years old. There was no time to waste, essentially. I've never stopped studying, obviously, but I have also never encountered a better source of providence for the masculine, which is the more systematic kind of knowledge that's required for living and growing spiritually, than Rudolf Steiner. There is really no other source that I have encountered that is better. If I had to recommend one person to study for spiritual development, it would be him, no question whatsoever. So, obviously, I'm one of many who feel that way because he has been described, as I've written here in this little slide, as the best kept secret of the 20th century, right? So, in truth, all of these, philosopher, dramatist, educator, architect, that doesn't even begin to actually encapsulate all of the things that he accomplished in his lifetime and all the hats that he wore. But that gives you an idea. So, Steiner gave a definition of anthroposophy, right? And in so many words described it as being a path of knowledge. It is not a faith, okay, and it's not a cult, even though I'm probably going to make it seem a little culty if I'm being honest. But anthroposophy as a word is wisdom or Sophia, and anthropos, which is essentially the full human being. And technically, since we're doing technicals here, it was first coined by Thomas Vaughan, who was a mystic in the 17th century. So the definition that he gave contains these core statements. There is a spiritual element in every human being. A lot of this you guys already know, but again, got to do my due diligence here. The visible world around us is founded on something invisible, which it is up to us to discover and research. And like I said, it's not a faith. So it's a path. And the works of Rudolf Steiner, as you've probably also heard me say a time or two before, they are not dead information. When you engage with the material from Steiner, but also other people who were in the Anthroposophical Society, those texts will work upon you. They will literally change, in short, who you are. I don't think I'm really a presentation kind of person, but we're going to keep seeing how I like it. So I like this analogy just to kind of seal the deal. All right. So if anthropology can be likened to a traveler in the lowlands, so somebody who's going around to foreign lands and they're trying to get an idea by going to place and house to house, seeing the people who live there and seeing the environment. And theosophy, the study of religion and belief systems, can be like looking at that same area from the top of the hill. Anthroposophy is like being in the middle of that, right? And so you're looking at the perspective of things from a theosophical point of view, but also a very important distinction needs to be made, which is that the hallmark of anthroposophy and Rudolf Steiner's work is really about practice over theory, which is why so much of this course is predicated upon his work. Soul practice over theory. Steiner also did a lot to replace this really obscure, a lot of times coming from the Eastern mystical perspective jargon around theosophy and different religions and things like that. He recapitulated them in really simple words, which might seem like a small matter, but it's really not. So for example, he came up with words for the spiritual hierarchies. So what used to be the excusii was replaced by Steiner with the spirits of form. And the kairiotetes was then, because of Steiner, the spirits of wisdom. And so he basically helped to modernize our understanding of the spiritual world. The thing about Steiner is that if you read his work, and I know not all of it is like this, and I know we're also reading this in the book club, but it almost feels as if he's like speaking one-on-one to you. It's so down to earth. And he gave well over 6,000 lectures in his life to people of every demographic and all walks of life. And so, you know, the only thing that Steiner posited that is really required to engage with his material is what he would call, you know, common sense, which is kind of more about your ability to listen than it is about what you know. In terms of the mission of anthroposophy, aside from, you know, what in a kind of a zoomed out view was he trying to accomplish by starting this movement? And in esoteric literature, we know that there are these large cycles that we experience as earthlings, as human beings, and there are also these cycles that took place on other planets. But for now, we're just going to talk about the Earth. During these large cycles, which we call ages or eras, there is an archangel that rules over that era. And the era that we are in, the era that at the turn of the century, Steiner was aware of and really used his knowledge of to create the mission for this, is Archangel Michael. And so the providence, the grace, and the teaching overall that you could say of Archangel Michael is about this combination, you might say, of the mind with the heart. So written in a different way, was that the heart should begin to have thoughts. Like I was saying, this common sense, which Steiner kind of asks us to have when we engage with his work, which also I am humbly requesting that you have while you're going through this experience, is to really allow whatever I put forth or whatever he puts forth, because a lot of it is a combination, to kind of emerge naturally. And some of it, when we get into lectures like 6 and 7, could be a bit bizarre or particularly abstract, and it might take time. As a matter of fact, I could almost guarantee that it will take time before it starts to kind of transform into more of a practical application. But in any event, listening is kind of the takeaway there. When we are engaging with anthroposophy, so when we are reading the works of Steiner, the best way that we can sort of keep something in orbit in our minds of what exactly we are experiencing is a sort of investigation of the thoughts of the gods. And when we get to the Holy Human Form lecture, lecture 3, which is probably the most intellectually rigorous lecture. I think this will make a lot more sense. But I'm going to skip this. We essentially are thinking the evolution of the gods. So to kind of throw you a bone on this, when people think, do I have a spirit guide, or how do I connect with my spirit guides and things like that? That is, first of all, no judgment, but that is a very kind of obvious consequence or symptom of how far away we have gotten from the truth of how human beings in the spiritual world actually operates. And that's a lot of what I seek to rectify in this. And so there is, we are essentially a thought thinking itself. So there is no question as to whether or not we have spirit guides or if we can talk to them. We are literally kind of a living manifestation of those guides' thoughts, if that makes sense. And again, I apologize. This is like, I honestly wanted so badly to just not do this lecture in terms, I just wanted to jump right in and like get to the fun stuff, but I'm trying to be an ethical anthroposophist, so bear with me. I appreciate it. So there was a time, okay, there was a former time on this planet where these evolutionary impulses and this wisdom flowed naturally like an instinct into man in earlier times of the earth, when we were quite different, during the Lemurian epoch, during Atlantis, up to a certain point. I know that these words are relatively meaningless now, but again, just having that common sense and just listening, there was no mediator between these spirits of form and these spirits of wisdom, these what we would call gods, these higher beings. Whatever was needed for the human to understand, to evolve, was simply transmitted to them, sort of like an instinct, right? They did not have to go through the process that we go through now to understand and evolve spiritually. They were evolved. But now we have to acquire this wisdom consciously. In a sense, anthroposophy, just kind of a word and very lifeless on its own, it's a very sacred thing. And it's something to consider, that in these bodies of work that we have that are anthroposophical, that Steiner, for example, has provided, the ideas imparted to us through this work are really something divine, and something which we as human beings, as we stand right now, are granted access to think on and to reflect on. And there is, a great reverence in that we that is not lost, that we have access to this kind of information, because in the physical sense and for a time we didn't. So if we're really thinking about this in a larger sense, we're we're understanding something about morality, which a lot of people seem like kind of allergic to talking to right now. But, sorry about it. That's kind of what we need to talk about more than a lot of other things. So, if you are, through studying anthroposophy, if you are dealing directly with divine energy, we'll put it that way, with beings that are more evolved in some degree than human beings are now, then it would naturally follow that there are certain, what we would call moral impulses, that would naturally arise the more that you engage with this kind of energy. And so what sort of moral impulses will the wisdom that we acquire through anthroposophy be transformed? And so the only one that I want to put to you, the only one that I think matters in the largest sense, is learning the full weight and the meaning of the word truth. Plato called it the ideal of wisdom, and he named it with a word which was in common use, the word being, ideal and wisdom. But during that time, human beings at that time still possessed some of that instinctual ancient wisdom that we have lost, right? So that's why we're replacing this word with truth. And this is why I'm saying the full weight and meaning of the word truth, right? This is kind of the result of an anthroposophical cosmology or world conception or knowledge of how the physical and the spiritual world works, what a human being is from a scientific perspective. We are able to understand from, again, a scientific perspective, things that are paramount to our mission, looking very broadly as human beings collectively. How do we need to evolve? We have to be able to understand spiritual concepts in the spiritual world from a scientific and truthful internal position, not some sort of vague idea. We need to know very concretely now, or prepare, to do the work to understand these kinds of things. Otherwise, I shan't talk about otherwise right now, because that would very rapidly devolve into even more unpleasant conversation. So Steiner's task is essentially to resolve the crisis of knowledge, which in a nutshell is the fact that people, by and large, no matter what honorific titles they have or don't have, all across the board, deny the reality of the spiritual world. And that is, in fact, a crisis, because everything in the material world is a consequence and a result of the spiritual world. So you can see why this is the only real issue that we are facing today as humans, because all other issues are second to this. And just wrapping things up here, anthroposophy comprises many things, but if you want some bullet points on it, we've got a theory of how we know the world. We've got a practical path of spiritual or inner development. A very complex, and I'll emphasize that again, cosmology that traces human and earthly evolution from its beginnings in distant spiritual worlds, for example, like Lemuria and Atlantis. to the present moment and beyond. We will get into this, especially in lecture 3, week 3, in terms of what the actual fuck is a physical, etheric, astral body, and like, really, this is like my gift to you is like, if I do my job correctly, you won't have to read another New Age book about what this shit is. We can just understand it, and we can actually move on to why we should know what it is in the first place. So, an evolutionary theory of Christ, of Jesus, which is one huge thing that I definitely don't have enough time or wherewithal to speak on, which is how important a true understanding of Jesus Christ, but also Christianity as a whole was to Rudolf Steiner. Very, very different, entirely different reframe than the dogmatic kind of Christianity that we all know and love today. And an alchemical understanding of natural and spiritual processes that lead to an alternative science of nature, which seems very necessary to me, if you're asking me. A profound vision of what it means to be human, including karma and reincarnation, which we'll be talking about in one of the lectures on the laws of karma. Things that people should know if they are alive. Things that people should know if they are alive. And we'll get somewhat into heavenly hierarchies and stuff like that, but not too deeply, because that is very complex territory. And again, most important point would be, soul life practice over theory. Over theory. That is the thing. There is really no way to emphasize enough how much Steiner was against this kind of super intellectualized, theoretical, mumbo jumbo kind of way of delivering gnosis or spiritual information. He firmly believed that it isn't real, or you don't really know it until it is very real to your physical senses. So, and in other words, to to deepen and interconnect or combine inwardly this information, these concepts as a lived reality and an experience of our lives is literally what anthroposophy is, in my own words. We've all heard know thyself. A lot of that means to know who you are, sure, but the thing that we're missing here, that anthroposophy, the need that's not being met anywhere else, in my opinion, is the objective scientific aspect of know thyself, which is, not just who am I as this personality, essentially, but what is a human being? Like, what actually objectively is that? How did human beings evolve? Where did we come from? Why did we come from? What stages of evolution did we go through? What did that look like? That information, which great swaths of people are still perceiving to be a mystery, is not. And it is actually yesterday that we should have been, so to speak, that we should have been moving the conversation beyond these things, such as, is there life after death? Did we evolve from monkeys? spoiler alert, no, we did not. These are questions that, from my opinion, the answer has already been there. There is the problem, which a lot of people who get labeled conspiracy theorists, of course, like to poke at, is that there are these grievances with the poor distribution of information of this kind that answers these questions, right? And instead of pointing people to a million different directions, I am literally pointing one finger to one person, essentially. So one thing that must be noted is that the more that you start to understand these answers, it doesn't get more simple. Nobody, like, so to speak, nobody wants to hear that, right? But that is the truth. And I want to be very upfront about that, because some of these lectures are really intense and they are challenging and they are exceptionally complex because they have to be. And I am much better at talking about that information than talking around the thing. So rest assured. But we really have to complicate our understanding of these things if we really want to have an objective and true grasp on these things, because they are not simple. They are not simple at all. But one of the natural consequences of this is not only do you start to understand the truth of things that could not matter more than anything else, you, going back to the you that you know yourself to be, what we'll loosely term personality, you become larger, and your own vision and your own experience expands as a result of that. But they have to work in tandem. They have to be combined. It's quite literally like trying to enact a major change on the material plane, for example, while having no sense of how everything that you are experiencing on the material plane is a direct result of the spiritual plane. So the more that you start understanding how that plane operates, you can finish the rest. Now, one second. You'll be able to tell when I really love the lecture portion and when I'm like, I have to do this because it's the right thing to do, but I'm not super psyched about it. But anyway, so let's take a 5-minute break and then go from there. So in the spirit of, like I said, creating a sense of safety, one thing that became clear to me that I needed to do was to mature as someone who wants to educate people by getting better at delivering information that is essentially not my own. And there's a lot of that during this course. And so I want to go ahead and extend a bit of gratitude. And also in terms of bearing with me through that, but also I want to let it be known that there is ample space and opportunity for for sharing, not critique, I guess, but that's definitely a word for it, but anything that you think might be helpful for me to know in terms of helping you understand the information that I present. So you could say that's another thing that the Telegram can be used for, because that also lets me know how I can improve. And so don't be shy. I thrive, as it were, on criticism. And like I said, I'm letting you know that I'm doing a new thing that is quite challenging for me. So, okay. Here is what I want to do with the rest of this time that we have together today. I want to, I want you to tell me a story, essentially. And when I say I want you to tell me a story, and I'm gonna devise a way so we can determine who goes first. But this is essentially what I want to know. I want to know more about if you could have and you could hold it all. If, you know, if you could have it any way, if your vision or your dream came true, what does that look like? You know, what are the wishes and the talents and the fears and the needs and the pastimes and the environment and the work and the rest? What does that look like? You know, what are you doing? Who are you being? Those kinds of things. And I know it's a lot to ask in terms of just speaking about those things off the cuff, but you have all the freedom in the world to ramble and flounder, just like me giving that lecture, and just participating in a raw moment of sharing these things. And so I'm going to choose a number between 1 and 10. And you, and you, Raina, pick a number between 1 and 10. 1, 5. Okay, the number was 5. Raina, you're psychic. Congratulations. So
I can go home now.
yeah, that's it. Thank you. You graduated. I'll send you your cap and gown. Fabulous. Okay, so the number was 5. So you, my dear, you get to pick whether you want to go first or second.
Guess I'll go first.
Go first.
Why not? Okay. How to answer this? I feel like I'm not really sure like what direction to go in. I guess I'll just say what I initially thought was I know the thing it's not that I'm looking for it, I have it, but I think different layers of it is this freedom of time. I think that's something that's been like something I didn't realize was so important to me till the past couple of years. And freedom of time is very important, and being able to spend my time at the rate that I need to spend it in that moment in my life. Sometimes the rate of my life needs to be really fast, and that works. And I'm like ready to gather a lot of information and do a lot of things. And other times, like now, should be sleeping, I guess, and limiting my life to like 4 activities a day and nothing else. So I realized the other more like over time, that's more of like a freedom of how I spend my time. Um, um, I know, I believe everybody has like a reason to be here for sure. I think we live in a world where everybody's reason has to be like on some grand scale. I don't believe that needs to be mine. had always this theory of like making other people's, if everybody just thought about everybody else, none of us would have to worry about ourselves. And that's something I've always thought about. Like, and it's so simple, but not, obviously. And, but that means impacting just individual people that, more. At least to me, it does. I guess for some people, it could be seen as this like big grand thing to do. So yeah, that's just, it plays out in a real world sense for me when I think about it now, but I think there's more to that. I'm unclear about it and I don't feel rushed to find the answer on it. I don't feel rushed to find the answer on anything, to be very honest. Right now, I know, like with the first time in my life, I really am like, I solidly know the rest of my life is going to be good. And could I tell you what it's going to look like? I have no idea. But I know up until this point has been good, and I would have never predicted all these things. So, and they were not the things I was stressed out about, but all these good things came about. And I'm like, I looked back and I thought, life has been actually good. Is it any of the things I worried about? Absolutely not. Did I get the things I wanted? Sometimes no, sometimes in ways that I thought, okay, that's not the form I wanted it in, but like, wow, that did show up. So I'm like, okay, so far life's worked. Why wouldn't it work this way till the end of it? So I'm like, I actually have nothing to worry about. Wow, that's great. I don't know.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, that'll be helpful.
Yeah, of course. That's conversation, man. What a gag. So with this freedom of time, if you had that to the extent, right, to this unquantifiable extent, what would you be doing differently? Or how would you be feeling differently? Or both?
The one thing that I would not, in terms of work and what brings me income, I would do on my own time. I would not feel a need to, which it is very loose. I don't work on a tight schedule. So I'm also kind of like, well, you don't work on a tight schedule, but I do, but there is a schedule. Like I don't want to kid myself. I still work for somebody else. So that is the reality of what is. And so there wouldn't, I don't want to say that wouldn't be, because that doesn't bother me, the idea of working for someone else. It never has. But my time kind of being dictated slightly by someone else in terms of like when I work or when I'm expected to work, or what that even, I guess more the definition of what that means is like kind of a nagging thing that I'd like to remove, and what that looks like. Yes, working for a company, it feels like there's this nagging of like, I work between these hours and this is when I work. And I'm like, maybe I only need to work 3 days a week. Or something to that effect. I don't know. And then also it would be freedom of like, which I do have now, is like space and time, in terms of like wanting to be here with family and then being able to up and move and be like, right, feeling like I want to be in the mountains, and like, okay, like how does what I do, how I feel, allow that to dictate where physically I get to move about too, is really part of that too, I would say. But the only thing that would change is really, I guess, my work thing. I think everything else actually feels like I spend my time. The only other thing also is something I'm just working on, is my own sense of discipline on my own time. And that's just me. I mean, if I in my ideal state, I would have much more discipline around the time that I have. And it
What
would
would it
be
look
less
like? What does discipline like that look like?
I guess like waking up at a certain time, working on creative things at a certain time, moving my body at a certain time. Actually, that's not true. Not a certain time, for amount of time. I think amount of time feels better to me, not so much a certain time. But feeling like I checked all the things that satiate me in a day, and knowing there is a time and it needs to be met at certain point, some time of the day, of each day, by the end of the day. That's what it would look like. I don't, yeah, I don't know if it necessarily feels like it needs to be at a certain time of the day, but I think that might help. Just some
Right.
structure.
So what I understand is making sure that those needs are being met, even if it's not, you know, about how long you do them or what time you do them.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I think all those things, especially right now, I was supposed to remove a lot of things out of my space and have a lot of space, but now I'm like, now I have a lot of space. So I think the structure, I really have this strong like instinct that the next step for me is the structure of my space. And something about the structure of the space will allow almost like this opening of information to come in. I don't really have like anything else around that, but I just have a feeling that that is it. Like the structure will happen and the space will open up. Like the things will open up, but I have to create the right structure, the structural space. But the actual time has cleared now. It is clear. I have the time. It's like I have time to take a nap. So, but I'm not using it to the best of its ability to get to maximize whatever thing wants to show up in all parts of my life, I think. That was like a long-winded answer, but there it is.
No, it's fascinating, actually. Fascinating, and just my mind's reeling with how much truth there is to what you're saying. But I would be curious just to make sure that I understand the connection, once again, if you would say it, between the literal, when I understand the literal structure or of the space, and how that is as the catalyst or what's necessary for how you behave and how you fill the time and energy within that space. Am I on the right track with that?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, definitely it would help. Yeah, it would help how I fill the space. I guess more in detail. I already can structure it kind of like the framing of a house if it is a house, but the stuff inside is kind of like much more creative and loose and free, and more stuff will, and just other things will come in that I don't know yet. I don't know what those things are. I have no idea, but I know they're on the other side of like, you haven't built the house, lady. So why would we deliver you a couch?
Perfect.
It's like that. It's like, but I don't know if it's a couch. Like it might be something else. But it's like, no, like you're not getting any deliveries. You have to build a house first. So I'm like,
That's
oh, okay.
beautiful. Do you feel like there is something where it's almost like a catch-22 in terms of something that you need to create the house is also something that you're hoping to receive when you get the house? Does that make sense?
No, it doesn't feel like if I build a house and what if I don't get the thing? It doesn't feel like that. It feels, it literally feels that way. Like I have to build the house and then the things will come. It does for me. I'm someone who doesn't really work in structure in life. And so that is just in general a new, I don't know, space for me to, you know, it is I create structure well in chaos. I'm not in chaos. I'm not sure how to create structure outside of chaos.
That's
I am excellent at creating structure in chaos. I can create the most structured life in chaos. I don't have any chaos, none. And I'm like, okay, how do I do this? It's almost like when people say like it's idle time. And I'm like, but it's not meant to be idle. Like I know that. It's meant to be filled now. Like the slate was clear to fill the space. But I'm sort of like, oh, do I have to?
that definitely that answers my next question, which is like, so why haven't you built that house yet? But
I know.
yeah, you all right, but you need the house needs you need chaos to build the house.
Yes,
So she says.
I'm used to chaos building houses, but I don't think I need it. I think it's that has how I've worked. I've worked with needing 36 hours and 24-hour day, and now I don't have that, which is great. I love it. But now it's like, okay, it's time to it's time. I think also it will help relieve. I also know it'll help someplace relieve my fears I have on connecting closer to like my intuition that pushes into other spaces that I feel afraid of. So,
What does that
um,
mean?
I've had like two instances and 2 points in my life in the past 2 years where I felt like I always know there's other entities, right? But I never really felt them. And then like 3 years ago, 2 years ago, it was like I felt them so intensely that it was scary and I just wanted it to stop. And so I did everything I could to make it stop because it was too much. And so I'm like, okay, so I don't know. So part of that creating structure in my life, I think someplace in those pockets will create that structure because I would like to know what that is because then there was another time in January where that space opened up again and it was really close and I could feel it. And I'm like, this is too close. But at least I recognized it. So it wasn't as scary, but I'm like, this is too close for me. But I don't have it. I don't feel like I have any control of going, oh, okay, how about this? How about you just come this close? I don't feel like I have any control over that. So I'm like, I'm not doing this. So if I create, I just know that that's what that means because I don't know what that means yet will show up once I like start building slowly these spaces. I don't know why I know, but I do know that will come in once I create that space. So right now I have to keep this thing that I am interested in at a very far distance because I'm not comfortable with it coming as close as it can come. And I'm like, and I don't want any of that energy too close because it's just too scary for me because I don't feel like I have any control of it or over anything. It's just stresses me out. Overly stresses me out.
Yeah, that is perfectly understandable.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is perfectly understandable.
So
I'm
I'm not
just
sure what else to add to that, but
yeah,
that was
you
I feel
can
like
you can go on, you can stop. I don't mind me. I'm over here, like I said, just taking notes.
I think that's it. I think that's because I know that's also part of why I'm here is that it's like I was supposed to have those like I also know that's a pattern in my life. I have very intense things show up. Like I was intensely sick and all these things happen and it's like, oh, okay, like I'm like, whoa, I didn't know it could be that intense. But then it allows me to like get closer to it. So I'm like, okay, now I can like get closer to the thing because I know how deep it is, you know? So it was
That's that there that's that catch-22 thing that I was kind of feeling, but in the wrong place where it's like you only learn how to build the house or how to fortify the house or what the boundaries need to be by knowing more about what you are contending with. It's like
yes.
experiencing the thing gives you the information you need to build something to protect you from the thing or declare how close you want the thing to be, sort of thing. Yeah. Yeah. That is that's a very tricky and multi-dimensional problem.
Yeah.
Yes,
So
yes. Excellent. But also you are super psychic, my dear, because you already answered the other question, which is like essentially what do you think attracted you to this experience in terms of multidimensionality? Because that word means so many things to so many different people. And so just in the little bit that you shared briefly there, it seems to me like, you know, is a desire to learn more, maybe objectively, about the spiritual world,
Yeah.
you know? But what else do you think, if anything?
I'm an information gatherer. When I'm like, I know nothing about the things I don't care about, and then when I care about something, I want to gather as much information as possible. And so this is something I don't really know about. I just don't. And yeah, I can like scour the internet, but I feel like that's completely useless without a base. So I'd rather not do it that way, because I'm like, I don't know if this is true. I don't know what, until I have a base. And then I'm like, okay, I have a base. So I don't have a base of anything. I just know what I experience. So I know in terms of real life, I'm like, okay, these things are real because I'm real and this is what I'm experiencing. And I trust that always. Now, in terms of like a textbook, what is that, I do not know. And so that I'm really interested in.
And I really, really appreciate you saying that and you being here, because that is why I'm here.
Yes.
That's
What I do
awesome.
know.
That's awesome. That is really just wonderful. So thank you. Seriously.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. Sweet. Sweet. All right. Yodelay-hee-hoo.
You're up.
Hello, Governor.
Hello, Governor. Tell me a story. Tell me the story.
Can you re-ask the question?
Oh, yeah.
I literally have to like wash my hands because I just like was all up in your skin pores, Raina, and your story. Like I don't even remember my name right now. So I need the question for the reset.
Yes, darling.
I'm just very involved in what you're talking about. I felt a lot of resonance around that. Like,
yes.
Yeah. So ask me the question again, darling.
I sure will. So if you could have it all, if you could hold it all comfortably, what is that vision? What is that dream? What does it look like? What are the wishes, the talents that you have, the fears? What kind of environment do you need? What are your needs? What is the work that you're doing? Who are you being? What are you doing? Anywhere you want to take that.
There were elements in something I watched and it made me cry. That I literally like got my salad and parked in this place that I like to park that gives me this sense of high ideation. It's like a little bit on a hill, so you can like see the town below. And I open up my phone and I'm watching this series about this Israeli choreographer. And he is not, I mean, he clearly gets it. He clearly understood the motherfucking assignment when it comes to the duty of expression, the duty of it, the investigation, the exploration, the acceptance, and the embodiment of it. He choreographs movement in concepts. He takes people through sensations, not 5, 6, 7, 8, and up, down, no. It was feel the feathers in your ass. Like it was literally a sentence to use. Feel the feathers. Like we're feathers today. Where is that? What is that? Where is it in your fingers? Where is it? Okay, everybody collapse. He took people through expression, free range. He said things like, let's explore the limitation there, where you just can't get past that point. There's so much of me in what I witnessed. And then I remembered that I had watched this same damn clip before, the same series. And I'm just paying attention to how dance and movement has been calling me for such a long time, because I watched it before and got sucked into it, and something just called me to pull it up again. And I just searched dance in Netflix, and the series looked interesting to me. I didn't remember it, but there was the first episode and I was like, this feels familiar, like I've seen this before, and I skipped it. And then I remember doing the same thing the first time, like watching the first one and skipping it, like mid through. It was interesting. I knew that's not what I was looking for, so I skipped, and it was that episode again. And then as I'm watching it, like, oh, in the new context of what we've been talking about. This was years ago. I watched this series and it was the same pattern, and I recognized the pattern. Even though I completely forgot about it, I recalled it immediately, like, wait a minute, I saw this before. Okay, let me watch it. And then I'm watching the first episode and I'm like, no. And I was like, wait, I did that last time. Okay, what is this? And I haven't watched an episode past it. I don't care. I know I came to see this particular man. He goes about it in a very investigative way where I want to be more targeted. I want to be more targeted, although I have every intent of playing in the exploratory realm, but in a more targeted place. There was a scene where the man was on an elevated stage, this huge fucking hangar with like 300 people. And I started crying that same way, just like in the transmission that you and I did together, where you say something and I'm not feeling when you're about to cry and you feel that welling in your face and the warmth, and it was a cool, is this even me crying kind of feeling, where I like to associate it like seltzer. Like it was a seltzery. It didn't taste like Coke. It didn't taste like Dr. Pepper. It was a seltzer, distinct absence of character in the individual human way I know it to mean, but it still moved me to tears. It was a cool crying where I wasn't racked in emotion. It just felt like an expression. It was an expression that was calling itself through me. And I'm sitting there with my half-eaten salad, like, I love this so much. Oh my God. Like this is what it looks like. It's very, very, very feminine, very nature oriented. He was definitely more clinical. He was more certainly academic in this vacuum kind of way, which had its own uniqueness to it, and it's perfect for exploration and investigation when you take all the trimmings off of it. But I definitely am more, I like the drama. And I also have ulterior motives. These ulterior motives are rooted in the insistence and imploring. And I think about my Islamic background, where you go to the top of the mosque and you call people to prayer, but to call people to their exploration and their inherent divine expression that is already tattooed all over their bones. All over their bones. Come over here and be all the fucking beingness you can be and what that shapes like. Prune your own damn fucking bonsai tree. You know, just let's go and shake our asses in the process and wiggle around in the process and fling our bodies around in the process, moving in unison. It is very specific. I have very specific designs, and I can resonate so much, Raina, with where you're sitting, where you're like, I don't know what it looks like, but I know what it feels like. Like, I know it feels like, and maybe I don't know how to describe what it feels like, but you've got a bead on that, girl. I just want to tell you that you got a bead on it. And I love that. And it feels so good when the details start to drop in. God damn, that feels good. And I'm so excited with how these continuous conversations, how they will shape the next 9 weeks for us as we, ask these questions over and over again and revisit them, but it feels like that. It feels like I don't want to have a fucking clue what day it is. You were talking about time. It's really important. Like, I would love to have, and I can already feel my older sister. I feel like she has some role in this because we're talking a lot lately where somebody drops in and directs me where I need to be on a specific day. Because I'm not tracking that. I'm too busy locked up in a book I'm reading, or you've got to pull me out of a museum somewhere, or I'm just walking around like a child. I just want to like that's that curious, obsessive, did I eat today? Who cares? Because I'm looking at the frames on all of these paintings in this exhibit and it's making me cry. And that's where I'm going to be today, crying over frames. Somebody call me when I got to be somewhere and remind me what I'm supposed to be doing. Like, that's what it looks like. It's curious. It feels random because I'm allowing my broader self to coordinate the elements. So my little individual mind doesn't get bogged into the details. And when my mind does go bananas, I'm in a state of lustful curiosity. And that's when I'm eating every tiny little detail and won't let anything slide. That's what I feel. That's what I want. And very much feel myself careening in that direction, whether I want to or not, to answer your question.
Beautiful answer. I think one thing that is interesting about both of your stories is that there's so much that is contingent upon time. There's so much that is contingent upon time. And as a matter of fact, there isn't a subject that is more important to me than that. More important than anything else is that subject of time, because I don't really think that there is anything else. There really is no other answer to any of these questions other than what will I be doing with my time, and how aware of the time will I be? um, so Q, what do you think, following everything that you just said, what do you think are some things that attracted you to this experience? And if you also want to throw in, what multidimensionality means to you, and Raina too, after Q, since we didn't really get to do that for both.
What drew me, I think honestly, what drew me to this is a long evolution that predates this lifetime around power and powerlessness. I think that seeing one's self as diminished is probably, if I thought in terms of sin, that would probably be the only one I'd put in the sin book. And expression is such an act of execution. You have to have explored it to express it. There's an acknowledgement of what is inside, and what is inside, when you express it, it has a cascading effect in the world. And honestly, whether it's a truthful expression or a non-truthful one, it has a cascading impact in the world. And that's the beauty of expression. Whatever condition it's in, that bitch is going to travel, because the act of expression is just, I mean, I love what you said earlier about us actually being thoughts thinking themselves. What a fucking expression where thought bees and thinks and expresses and create all these forms. I love that shit. Like, look, like,
Oh,
give
you're
it
in
to
the right
me.
place.
Give it to me. Give it to me. Like, what? Are you kidding me? I love that. So I think what's called me to it, to answer your question, is a long, long lineage timeline. Talking to my sister about generational healing, we're being called to, was really around powerlessness and what a suppression of expression that is. And it is very much my duty, I feel like, to kick out on the other side of that dynamic, from the powerlessness and the suppression to flowing into the power, recognizing our roles and finding our roles holy, and then doing the shit out of them like nobody else can, and watching it support itself when you allow it the room, and it becomes its own form that cascades on, as it seems to be what the theme of what we do around here in this whole universe thing. So that is pretty cool. Multidimensionality to me is being able to relax the kung fu grip on assumptions and points of view, so I can open to more, where I can adopt certain viewpoints, where my eye becomes bigger, where I blend with the larger eye, I think is what that is. And I think that applies to everything, not just embodied movement, but to everything, to answer that question.
Wow. That was wonderful. I loved that answer, multidimensionality. That was really something.
Yay.
I loved that. That was awesome. What about you, Raina? What does that word mean to you?
This is why I didn't go first, because I wanted to go before. I mean, I
I'm
went
sorry.
first because you get such good stories.
That's always a tough act
I
to
want to make
follow.
sure. Yeah. I was like,
Yeah, it's
I'll
like,
just go. I'll take my chances of going first.
yeah. Ah,
Second probably will feel good, right? I was like, oh man.
oh,
What is it? What does it mean? I think it
yeah.
means, right?
Yeah, what does it mean to you?
Um, I guess I mean to go back to the word time again. I'm also like obsessed with time. This is like something I've been obsessed with my entire life. I'm like how
Me too.
like not to get off track, but I used to it was a hard thing when I first had jobs because I just didn't believe in time. Like I literally didn't believe in it. Like I'm like, it's not a thing. I'm like, who it's made up. I'm like, this is literally made. And they'd be like, what are you talking about? Can you just get here at 9 a.m.? I'm like, it's not real. I was like, you can't punish me for fake things.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, everybody else follows time, so we have to try a little harder because we don't want to harm other people. This is why we follow time, which is really my theory. I follow time because I don't want to harm others. I care more about not harming others than I do about my belief that time is not real. No. But anyway, so yeah, I think there's I literally do. If I
That
didn't
was
believe
my favorite rant about
Dude,
time ever.
if I no, I'm sure there are
Same.
bosses. I'm sure there are bosses till this day who are like, there's this person who worked under me who gave me this long spiel about time, all because she didn't want to show up on time.
That's why you're our hero.
Like, I'm sure
I
there's
just didn't
people
show
who
up. I didn't even,
show up
you
late,
actually
or bosses
preaching.
that hired me who are like, why are you so good being executive assistant? I go, because I actually care about time because it harms my lack of caring about time and belief in time harms other people, and I don't want to harm you, so I'll be really good about keeping your time. And they're like, what?
Like, what do I say?
I'm like, if you hire me after that, then we're meant. That was always my theory. So I'm just gonna tell you what I think, and if you don't like it, then we weren't meant to be.
Damn.
So yeah. But I do believe there are. I'm using the word time is the only word I have for it, but there are spaces on different planes that are in motion, I guess, in sync, off sync, and I don't believe everybody can lean into all of them. I really don't. I don't believe that. I think some people can, and some people a lot better and a lot faster and a lot more in depth. But I also believe that's intentional. Like it is an intentional process that everybody can't and certain people can. Um, and so it's like being able to hear through the walls. Some people just can't. They're not supposed to be able to hear what's going on in the other room. Um, so for me, it really is like this sense of space and there's another word for it that I can't quite put my finger on it, but yeah, I guess the best I could put it is planes that are always shifting and moving and doing their own thing. And there is synchronicities. There's synchronicities around it. There's not a line through it. I want to say line, but I'm like the line's not right. There's just like these synchronicities that sort of happen that some people can hear, or parts of it they can hear, or and other people can't. And so yeah, I guess that's what it means to me. And I'm just interested in like what version I'm supposed to hear or do hear and what that means. And then also actually being with you guys made me realize I'm like, oh, other people hear a different way. It's not just more in depth, like as my friend, and there's other things I don't know till I'm with other people like you. And then I'm like, oh, okay, I didn't know this. I'm like, I just thought there was more in depth but now I'm like, oh no, there's like there's like different spaces that I just don't like tap into. And I'm like, ooh, that's really cool. So,
Yes, that's a really
yeah,
good point. It's a really good
yeah,
point.
I'm like,
Oh, do we lose Q? Oh no.
we did.
Yeah. Also, that's a really good analogy too, with hearing people hearing things through the wall.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I'm convinced that's that's what I finally realized that's what was happening. Actually, talking to my mom, who has her own sort of
I
senses of
remember you
things.
mentioning your
She
mom.
does. And I
Yeah.
realized I thought ours was the same until she said something else. And I realized I'm like, oh, well, you get messaging in a completely different way that I never even knew because we just never really talked about it in that way. And I think mine is like hearing. I realize I've always been chasing things that I'm like, I'm like, oh my God, I got a nugget of information, but I thought it was all like in me. And I'm like, I'm gonna have this like idea of something and it's gonna come through. And then for some reason, all of a sudden, like a couple months ago, I realized, no, what's actually happening is that I thought I'm not chasing something in myself. It's like chatter in another room that I know I'm
Good
hearing.
word,
But
chatter.
and it's just chatter and it's so much chatter. And I'm like, oh, and I'm like chasing, and I'm like, oh no, you're not supposed to chase the chatter. Like that's just chatter in another room. Like that's not necessarily for you. And then someplace in that I came up with those like again, this all came out of those 4 weeks with you guys. That's also why I'm here. Cause I was like, I got so much out of that. I got this question thing where I was like, what if I just ask questions? And
Yes.
I'm like, maybe it's someone in the other room's gonna give me an answer about something random, but I'm not supposed to be, I don't know, engaging with that chatter. I don't think in that way at least. It's just sometimes the chatter is I just can hear it and I don't know why I don't know, maybe I'm supposed to hear the chatter in those moments. I just don't know why, but there are moments where the chatter is really loud and I don't know what's being said. It's just there's chatter. So
That's a
I'd
really
like
good
to,
word. I've always
yeah.
always used that word to describe what I'm pretty sure we're on the same page here. It's just such an apt word, and it's also, you know, uh, sometimes, at least for me, sometimes it can be quite difficult to discern what's chatter and what is you.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No,
Yeah.
that's fantastic. That's really fantastic.
That's the other dimension.
Yes. And
What is
also,
scary is when someone started showing up very about 6 feet from me. That's when I was like, I don't know what's happening. I want it all to stop.
yeah,
That is the thing I want to figure out because I just worked really hard to make it all stop when that started
Can I
happening.
ask you something?
Hmm.
When is there is it the sudden nature of it that doesn't make you feel safe, or does the presence itself not feel safe?
I think at first it was the suddenness because I never had any experience like
Yeah,
that.
I can imagine that has to be jarring as hell.
I never had any experience like that ever in my life. I always knew that there was like it's like there's a bubble and there was always just like a little bit of pressure. And I'm like, okay, there's a little bit of pressure. And I was okay with a little bit of pressure because that's just pressure. I don't know like what's causing the pressure, and that's my existence. There's a little bit of pressure. And then I did all this like clearing stuff and I would lay down and go to sleep. And like it was literally sometimes feel like something was opening up and someone would be like things, not a person. It didn't feel like, but it like entity or something was like literally 6 feet away from me. And I would just be like, so I couldn't be in a quiet space with myself because anytime I was in a quiet space with myself, there was an entity 6 feet from me. And I'm like, I don't like this. This is too much. And it's too, I don't know what it is. I don't know what to make of it. It's just, and it's like loud. It's like sitting and then someone's like, ah!
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm like, what the fuck? Can you not do that?
Oh,
So everybody
hell
just get
no.
out because and that's how it was. And it happened. It started January of 2021. And for weeks I couldn't sleep. I couldn't like be quiet. I couldn't meditate because I couldn't allow this quiet enough for it to all like come in screaming. And I'm like, because I don't know, because that's the only way it would come in screaming. And I talked to other people. I'm like, how do I make it stop? I'm like, is it a demon? Like, I didn't know what it was. But then my sister, interesting, I was thinking my sister, and she said, oh yeah, she's like, she's like, you should just like let it talk to you. And I'm like, no, I'm not doing that. And she's like, yeah, she's like, the other night I was in the room that you sleep in, because I stopped sleeping at her house. Sorry, I'm going on a tangent, but I'll be quick done. I was sleeping in my sister's room at her house. I was like, I couldn't sleep in her room because I thought if I changed rooms, it would stop, which clearly didn't stop. But I went to my parents' house. I should sleep at my parents' house. So like, maybe it'll stop.
Bro, you was running.
I was running. I needed desperately for it to stop. And my sister's like, no, you should just come back here. And she's like, because the other night I slept in that room instead of sleeping with it's like her woman cave. So sleeping upstairs with her husband, and she felt like pulling on the end of the bed, and she thought it was my nephew, and she realized it wasn't. And so she's like, oh, there's like something here. She's like, oh, okay, cool, whatever. But she's always been that close to it. My mom is too. They're that close. And I'm like, see, now I'm never coming back to your house because I can't be that close. And she's like, it's not a bad thing. And I'm like, for you, I'm like, for me, that's terrifying. But I knew things are getting that close. Like that showing up was that close. It was tugging on the end of the bed close. And I'm like, that is not okay for me right now. I just got clarity at the same time about the chattering in the other room. I don't like, now we can't do this. So I don't know what initiated all that. I don't know, but I just did everything to make it stop. And then last January it came through again. But it's almost like I could calm myself down enough to like rest in it. I don't know how to describe it, but like, I don't know. I could rest in it. Like I could be like, okay, I could still sleep and like meditate, but like I was like, there was a clear boundary. It was like, no, like I can't do this. So no. I think I couldn't do that before. Whatever energetically, I couldn't be like, no. Whereas I've got better just being no, but I don't want to just say no. I would like to.
You'd like to KNO.
Yeah. Right now
Wow.
I'm just no. I'm like no. No. Can't do it's too scary. But my mom and my sister are like things tugging, seeing things. Like my brother has the same thing, but he cut it off too because as a kid he had a whole thing like things waking him up or like walking around the house. My mom worked with him on it, and then finally he just, as he got older, he was like, nope, we're cutting that off. We're not doing that.
It's common, you know.
Yeah, it's wild.
But it's also understandable, common for people to cut it off when they,
Yeah.
you know. Yeah. You know, you you had kind of alluded to things in when we did the other lecture series, but I did not know the gravity or the intensity of the things that you were experiencing.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Well, I think I was still scared of talking about it out loud and it showing back up. And then something made me realize I can. Yeah, I still needed to, it felt like anything, even still now, if I'm like in a very calm, like just in the middle of the day, maybe calm, like something just like, and it feels like, so I like have to consciously think like, okay, no, like before, like I can't describe it, but there's a feeling of like, no, like I have to set this.
There's a threshold.
There's a thing that I'm like, okay, no.
It's, you know, it sounds like when you go idle, you go into receptivity. And
yes, that's exactly what's happening.
You need to project a thought so you're not receiving it.
Yes. So
no wonder you're sleeping. That sounds tiring.
Yeah.
So I'm like teetering, but now I'm at least in a place where I'm like, okay, I can go to my space and also at the same time be like,
Yeah,
Right.
like
before I couldn't do both. I'm like, I'm either, oh, it's like on or off, on or off. And I was like, so we got to do off because I can't, the on is
right,
too
right,
intense. So now I'm
right.
like, now I can still get to my space and be like, like this space, even just like doing nothing, I can get to that space and not. But there's always sometimes I can feel something enclosing on that space. And I'm like,
Yeah.
just let me have this moment. Like, I can't do this right now.
Chill, bro.
I'm not ready for this. So this is also what the structure is for me. I'm like, I need to create some structure.
Yeah, I wrote boundaries and underlined it like 3 times.
Yes, I
But
need some
yeah,
major boundaries.
well, one thing, first of all, I just want to say thank you for sharing that because
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
multiple levels it takes courage to share things like that. You know, I do want to tell you another reason why this is helpful is to some extent, I would say, you know, this course and particularly the lecture material could help flesh out some of your objective understanding in a very broad sense. But and this I guess is kind of a faux pas, but I don't actually care. What I was gonna say is that the things that you're talking about knowing that are very specific and personal, I want to tell you that if and when you ever wanted some very personalized assistance with that, I would really love to see you even semi-regularly just to support you with that. But obviously I can't in any way guarantee that you'll learn all the things that you need to know on a personal level through this course. But there are a couple of lectures in mind, and I'll make sure to be like, hey, Raina, this is one of those where I think some of the material, when you hear it and you kind of engage and like ask questions about your experience alongside it, I think that it could be particularly helpful with those experiences that you're having.
Awesome.
For sure. And I'll make sure to, like, tonight, like, put an asterisk, like, this is Raina's asterisk, you know, and make sure you know which ones are which with
You
that.
get what you put into this, Johnny.
Yeah.
So enough do. I am here for
That's clearly
you
also
guys.
why I'm here.
Yeah.
You can add that to the bucket of reasons why
Yeah,
I'm here.
man. Yeah, man. That makes me very happy. Yes. All right. So you guys, I do want to leave if even just a couple of minutes open for any questions you have. It could even be about like the structure of the course, time, anything, any and everything question related. As a woman of my word, we can do that.
I do have a comment about really looking forward to the combining that you were talking about. I'm excited about that because I am starting to recognize that I'm a little polarized. It's either stop or start, hot or cold. I'm obsessive or completely disinterested. And I am looking for balance, and I really like that was some key words that stuck out to me in your lecture. Also, actually enjoyed the lecture aspect of this.
Oh, thank you.
So I wanted, I wanted
like the worst lecture I've ever given.
And why do I like? You're laying a foundation, and maybe it feels dead, or maybe it feels like boring to you because it's so basic. and you know it so well, but I'm definitely looking for new foundation. So that foundational stuff, I like going back to the basic elements. I love that as a refresher in general of going to the foundation. There's I have this conversation a lot with some of my clients when they have objections to the administrative aspects of work. Like, that's the spine. That's where the organization is structured. There is an appropriate amount of fucking respect that need be paid to it. So I really like that. I like the lecture portions. I love lectures. I listen to audiobooks all the goddamn time. I listen to podcasts all the time. I love listening to people talk. That shit is music to me. So talk away, darling. Talk away.
Thank you, Mother.
Yeah.
I appreciate
Totally.
that.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. Yes, it's kind of we won't necessarily delve into why each of the lectures has an accompanying tarot card with it, though again, you get what you put into it. So if ever you want to know why, you can ask. There are lots of things that I won't necessarily explain for you, but they're in
Actually,
there.
I'm glad you bring that up. What's up with that? Like, what's up with
Yeah.
by the way, not on the subject, what's our card for this one and why? I can't remember. Was it the Fool?
It's the Fool.
Yeah, it had to
Oh, it
be.
is the Fool. Yeah.
Yes.
Had to be.
Of course. I mean, it definitely it follows the major arcana, so we start on the Fool and we end on Strength, which is the first card in the major arcana that doesn't have an article the accompanying it. So it's kind of like my way of saying, now fly away. But the Fool, there's lots of it's a very personal kind of touch to the lecture portions, and kind of like I'm saying, like an Easter egg. There are things that I have kind of peppered into these classes that sometimes I think people will be like, wait, what did she say, or why is that there? And sometimes they won't. But the personal touch at first was because this is just as much an experience for me as it is for you guys. And like I mentioned before, there are things that I am doing in this course that are 100% new. I've never done them in this way in any kind of facet of my career, in a lot of ways in my life. And the first of which is to, the first time that we were all together, that was my first time ever teaching, ever. And I was teaching everything that I taught that was from me. Like I told you, it was literally from my life and my journal, and none of it came from anything outside of me, essentially. And this is very different, and I intend to put my money where my mouth is and mature as a teacher. And so in a sense, it's, the Fool was kind of like me being a fool in that sense, but it's also just the proverbial first step into unknown territory. That's why I've kind of deliberately been a little bit secretive about what there is to expect through the rest of this journey, because in all honesty, a lot of it is going to unfold in real time based on your participation. And especially when we get into the things that I introduced that are to be done when we're not spending time together, between classes, I think it will really start to take more of a multidimensional form beyond just the lecture and the exercise. I think that's when it really will start to bleed into, at least that's the hypothesis, that it will start to bleed into real life, as opposed to something that you just anticipate, for a couple of hours every week. So in some ways, I guess, although ironically, astrologically today, it is like the worst time in the world to take like a leap of faith. That is literally because, you know, I guess I'm a rebel or something. I don't know. That is exactly in a way what I'm asking and what I'm also doing. And then finally, I would say the whole reason that I included the tarot cards for each of the lectures is to kind of evoke this sense of learning about something while not knowing you're learning about something, if you catch my drift.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Dropping little worms.
Yes, precisely.
Nice. I'm with it.
Good. Mm-hmm.
Brandon, do you have any questions?
I don't. I think, which I kind of like. I kind of like that it all feels like just fresh information for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I really don't. I'm sort of just like in intake mode.
That's so weird.
Yeah.
I was literally about to say this lecture, this class is like the intake form. I literally just was about to say that.
Perfect.
Mhm.
Oh, look, Raina, I've got to tell you, if you ever want to consider a career in the intuitive arts, please, dear
darling.
God, come talk to me, because you.
Listen, you showed up at a very interesting time. So I just know. And one thing I know is I know what I know. Like life has taught me. I know what I know. I know that like this is supposed to go into a space where I deal with what is frightening me. And it's supposed to be something, because it's supposed to be something, and you showed up right in that space. And that was all
Glad to
happening.
be here.
And I'm like,
glad
oh,
to
this
see
is
it.
this is interesting. This is all happening quite in sync. So, and also, I've also found one of the synchronicities of my life is I always have the biggest and strongest growth in things like this, like in spaces where I'm super uncomfortable. Yeah, I'll get to a point where I'm like, okay, all right, I think I'm okay. And there's like something that I'm like uncomfortable with, and I'm just not quite willing to do on my own, and it shows up and things like this, and I'm like, oh.
Here
And
I go.
yeah. So I'm like, oh, okay. So I think this is gonna be one of those things where like that like thing where I'm like, oh, that's why. Okay, got it. But I can't, I would have never been able to like see it in front of me without other people. That's
what makes it an adventure to me.
Mhm.
Like that's where the adventure lies, and that in any good story, there's some looming something you don't know about around the corner that's going to throw this whole story into a fucking tailspin.
yeah.
And that's just delicious to me.
It's happening. I know it's happening.
It
I just
is.
I don't know when. Of course I wouldn't know. But that's how it works.
Oh man.
Especially when
Listen,
time isn't real.
It's not real.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, ladies.
Yes, thank you
It was
guys.
so good.
Wonderful.
I'm so excited for this.
Yeah.
I'm very excited. Super duper. All right, you guys. I'll see you next week.
Yes.
Okay.
Good night.
Bye.
Good night.